Yeah, welcome, welcome. Welcome back to that same old place that we laughed about. I think I'm recording. Am I recording? Yes. How else do you say it? Just coronavirus cheers, my friends. Coronavirus cheers to all you out there in YouTube land. Just out of the shower. And whilst in the shower, I was having a conversation with myself about life and music and all of these kind of things that I think about nonstop. And the conversation was about Nick Drake, is where it started. I was thinking about Nick Drake and how sad it was that he died unknown, uncelebrated. I think his albums, I think I probably have sold as many albums as Nick Drake sold in his lifetime. I think the 3 albums that he had, the first one sold about 3,000 copies, the second one sold about 3,000 copies, and the third one sold about 2,000. If you don't know who Nick Drake is, he is a now legendary folk singer, songwriter, kind of helped invent the genre, and he died very young, 27, overdosed on depression medication in his home, a childhood home bedroom, after giving the music business a try for 6-7 years, and it just completely failed. He moved home, overdosed on his depression meds. Decades later, his music started to be discovered and put into movie soundtracks, and I just discovered him really about just a few years ago. And I was thinking about how cool that is, and when I first heard that story, that is why I started playing music again, like really thinking about actually sharing it with people. I played music since I was about 9 years old nonstop. Up until the age of about 34, I was very interested in playing music for other people, playing in public, releasing albums. And then at about 34, I moved to LA. I just lost interest in playing music for people. But I always played music. I played piano for 2 years straight. Taught myself to play the piano, always writing on the guitar and singing. And then just recently, when I really dug into Nick Drake's story, that's what inspired me to go back into music. Number one, his story reminded me of my own, just the way he was, total introvert, anxiety, used a lot of drugs and stuff to help with that, couldn't tour, he would panic on stage. And long story short, it just reminded me a lot of myself. And I became so inspired by the fact that he died unknown and is now a legend that it made me go, what am I doing? All of us, whether you're an artist or a painter or a writer, whatever you do, my thought was, you have to keep doing it, especially in the face of failure. Like if you're getting some success with it, great. If you're well known for your art and your craft, that's fantastic. If not, keep doing it anyway. Because we all are going to die. This life is a finite thing and it ends. Sometimes it ends quickly. It could end today. We could wake up tomorrow. Coronavirus is killing hundreds and thousands of people around the world. That wasn't expected. You never really know how long this game's going to be. You get hit by a truck. An asteroid could hit the earth. You could take the wrong mixture of medications. Maybe someone's having a bad day. They shoot you in the head. You just never know what's going to happen, man. So, for example, my grandfather passed away 10 years ago, my mom's dad, and on my walls hang some of his paintings. He was an incredible painter, sculptor, just artist extraordinaire. You can Google him. His name is DJ LaFawn. And be careful, there's like a musician, DJ LaFawn, out of some other country, UK or somewhere. But his name was DJ LaFawn Painter. And look, painter, sculptor, you'll see his stuff. It's incredible works. But he's been gone about a decade now, and I have his watch in my bedroom drawer in a box, and I have his paintings on the walls. And in that way, in these paintings, his spirit lives on forever. And if you're an artist, if you're a writer, if you're a singer, painter, sculptor, whatever you're doing, some point you're going to die. And if you leave behind work, you can live as long as that work will exist. Like we're still talking about Pablo Picasso and Rembrandt and these people and Edgar Allan Poe and these artists and writers that lived and died long, long time ago, but they're still part of our society today. They have no idea. They probably didn't expect it. Many of them died broke and alone. But the point is they did the work. Long story short, the point of this is about doing the work. And about 2 years ago is when I really got into Nick Drake. I listened to the music. It finally hit me what he was doing. It was a really long story of how I got there. I basically got into, well, it's too long to tell. I'll tell that another story. But when I read his story about how he died unknown, that's when I went, what am I doing? What if I have within me a song or a word or a phrase that not only people could use or maybe want to listen to now, but 100 years from now, they may want to hear or listen to or read even more. Like, what if I'm just in the wrong generation? Nick Drake, as it turns out, the general public was not prepared to hear him yet. They weren't smart enough or open enough to hear what he was doing. It didn't work. Unfortunately, I would say there are probably thousands, tens of thousands of those kind of killer artists who don't make it. Because one of the sad things about art and music is, especially in music, a lot of times the worst music that's not as good as it could be, is the music that elevates to the top. It becomes popular with the general population, pop music. Justin Bieber, Katy Perry, Taylor Swift, Rihanna. I mean, the list just goes on and on of, they're great entertainers. I give them that for sure, but their music is not art, It's usually written by someone else or a team of other people. And what happens is they're elevated to these tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and tons of albums sold and all this attention. And their music will live on a little while, but no one's going to be listening to Katy Perry's, I Kissed a Girl 500 years from now. It's not going to happen. 200 years from now, it's not going to happen. We don't have, in my opinion, there are very few Bob Dylans, music that lasts, that's going to last a long time. Woody Guthrie. These old bluesmen, Robert Johnson, Lightning Hopkins, these kind of guys that wrote music that is timeless and will live forever. That's very rare. It's very rare that it's put at the top of the charts and that people know about it. I would say it's not very rare. I'd say that there are right now thousands of Bob Dylans scattered around. There are thousands of Robert Johnsons scattered around, but they're unknown. They're dealing with their lack of success and failure with heroin and drugs and booze and all these kinds of things. They're everywhere. They're on street corners, passed out. You have no idea who that guy might be, passed out with the acoustic guitar. Might be the greatest voice of our time, but he just didn't get a chance, or she didn't get her chance, because the music wasn't a type of music that was dumbed down enough to connect with the general audience, the general public of the world. And I don't want to sound too condescending to the general public, but it's a fact. If you want your music to translate to a big, wide market, right, you have to make it acceptable to the general public, meaning you can't talk about certain subjects. You can't say certain words. You have to play in a certain type of style, especially if it's a trend going on. Like a band, one of the greatest, most talented bands in the entire world to ever pick up instruments and play, from my personal point of view, is a band called Mr. Bungle. It's a band that Mike Patton, the singer from Faith No More, had before he was in Faith No More. They were high school kids, and they ended up, because of Mike Patton's fame and success in Faith No More, Mr. Bungle caught my attention. That's how I found out about him. And when I heard Mr. Bungle, it's the best music there is in that genre of weird rock, like alternative rock. They are the kings. They stand singularly alone because they combined everything, including like death metal, thrash metal, disco, country, surf music, rap, hip-hop, jazz, every style of music you can think of. And the lyrics were some of the spookiest, craziest. Like, my mom found the CD one time in my little brother's room and threw it away because of the lyric sheet. I mean, it's wild. They're talking lots about like masturbation and murder and killing people and But then like kissing and dancing and spitting in someone's nose and drinking their urine, like all these kind of crazy subjects that just don't translate to the general public. So the greatest rock and roll album, in my opinion, of all time is never going to be discovered by the general public because they're not ready for it. You have to tone it down. I mean, just to get on the radio, you have to cut a song to a certain length. I mean, some of the greatest songs of all time are long, very long songs. But to get on the radio, they recommend 2 or 3 minutes. You can't curse. You know, sometimes you have to alter the song to be more politically correct or more fitting for the general public so you can get on the radio, defeating the purpose of the art, you know. But it's a strange, strange world that we live in where the best art and the best artists may never get a chance to shine because their music's not dumb enough for the general public to understand. I hate to say it that way, but it's true. General public is generally very stupid. Very stupid. It's not even their fault. They don't know any better. They want something easy to listen to. They don't want to have to think about it. You know, it's much easier to put on a Taylor Swift hit that's written, or like Adele writes really wonderful songs. She's really great, though. Her voice is incredible. But her songs are just easy to listen to. You know, Mr. Bungle is abrasive. You have to sit down and really get ready. You know, put on a football helmet and go, okay, start the thing. Let's go. But so I was thinking about that. And Nick Drake is the one who taught me. Like, I just fell in love with the guy. The music is unbelievable. Like Beethoven-level genius guitar playing. Probably the best poetry ever written in music. I would put him head and shoulders above even guys like Leonard Cohen or Perry Farrell, who I believe is one of the greatest lyricists of all time, Jim Morrison. I think Nick Drake had an edge on even them. Because if you're judging by poetry, as far as writing poetry that stands alone on a piece of paper with no music, Nick Drake stands alone. That's just my personal opinion. I mean, Leonard Cohen's a genius. Jim Morrison's great. Perry Farrell's great. Bob Dylan's great. A lot of people are great. But he was undiscovered. He went undiscovered and he died not knowing how great he really was. And it made me think, what would have happened if he had never recorded those 3 albums? Sure, they blew into the wind of obscurity and no one ever heard them. But if he had never recorded them, I never would have heard them a couple of years ago. All these millions of people that now buy his records and listen to his music, they would have never discovered him. It wouldn't exist if he didn't create it. So as an artist, I had a breakthrough moment just a couple of years ago. Not only, I mean, I've always played music, but it was like you have to record. You have to document your art. If you call yourself an artist, but you're not documenting your art in any way, start. Whatever that is, drawing, painting, sculpting, making things out of wood, making things out of clay, painting pictures, whatever you do, whatever it is, start. Write the book. Even if no one reads it. The point is creating it, regardless of outcome, regardless of fame. I mean, at the beginning of time, art had nothing to do with being discovered or making money or getting fame. You just made art. You made stuff. Sometimes people liked it. Sometimes you became very popular and wealthy and celebrated and famous and all those great things that come along with being a very famous artist. Some people say that, sorry about that if that made a noise. I just hit the stand. Some people say that's the worst part of being an artist, is when you are discovered and then you have to play the game of, art and commerce. That's why a lot of bands, their first album's great, second album's pretty good, and then the third, fourth, and fifth, if they make it there, are just horrible. Shout out Coldplay. Shout out most bands that have, Motley Crue's first 2 albums are still my favorites. One was recorded in an evening for like $600, and it's just genius. Shout out Cody. We were just talking about this the other day, me and a guy, Cody Bailey. Just talking about how genius that album was. But the point I'm saying is, whatever you're doing, start. If you're like me and especially if you started off with a lot of hope for a certain outcome and the outcome didn't come in the way you wanted it to, you have to keep going anyway. Document your music, document your art, document your paintings. Paint them on a canvas and put them somewhere. Give them to people if you can't sell them. Have them hang them up. You want the art to stay. In a weird way, the point of art, or not even the point, but one benefit of art is it makes you almost immortal. If you paint a picture and you die at the age of 50, but people pass that painting through your family for 200 years, you still exist in people's living rooms. They tell this story. Oh, this was great uncle, grandfather to the third power, divided by 4, Malan, Darras. They go, oh, that's where we got our name. My first name is Darras. Is that where it came from? Yes, that's where it came from. He painted this painting in 2021. And they're like, wow, that was 200 years ago. And in that way, you still exist. Music's the same way. You can always put that album on, especially now that music's in the air. You know, back in the day, an album would deteriorate and fall apart. A CD would warp or break. A cassette would get melted in the sun, and the tape would get screwed up. But whatever you're doing, you got to do it. I'm doing it. You know, I'm in my 40s, and I last year put out the first album that I had done in a long, long time, and this was the exact reason I did it. It's called Star Child. You can find it on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere. Check it out. Did it myself here at home. On my own. I write the songs, I record them, I produce them, I engineer them, and I master them, and I do the album artwork. And, you know, in some ways you can tell. It's not perfect, but it's there. I like it. And I'm getting ready to do another one. But the point of it is I'm not looking for fame or fortune or attention. If any attention or anything comes my way, fantastic. If not, I did it, and it's there. And if I get hit by a truck tomorrow, what's the first thing everyone's going to do that knows me? They're going to go find those albums. And they're going to listen to them, and they're going to go, man, now maybe they'll get it. Now maybe their friends will get it. You never know. You really never know. There's no guarantees. You know, imagine you get, God forbid you have something go wrong with you and you pass away, but in your room they discover 72 paintings that you did. And all of a sudden, in a few years, your art is going for $10 million a piece. You never know how this stuff could work. So this was my shower thought. And I thought I'd turn on the camera and talk about it because I wish someone had told me something like this. I wish someone would have gotten a hold of me around my mid-20s when I was starting to get really depressed about music and the lack of results that I was hoping for. And the drinking got really dark and bad. And, you know, many people would tell you I was inches away from death for at least a decade and a half, probably 2 decades. I was just on the edge of jail, death, prison, something real bad happening. And a lot of it was just due to sadness and disappointment at the way things are or were. I heard a cool quote once. They said, depression happens when your concept of your reality outside your brain and inside your brain don't match. Like the reality that you want to happen and the reality that exists, when those don't match, that's depression. I remember hearing that many years ago. It helped me a lot because it's true. When you're really railing against and fighting against the way things are, which you can't change, that can make you really depressed. But anyway, I was stuck in that mode, and I wish someone would have set me down and said, hey, check this out. You're writing music all year anyway. At least once a year, sit down and document what you've done. Doesn't have to be an album, doesn't have to be a certain number of songs. The songs don't have to be a certain number of minutes. Bob Dylan just put out a song that's 17 minutes long. There are no rules with art. Because someday, when you die, not if, but when, that's what's going to be left behind. Things you wrote, things you painted, photographs you took. Take pictures, frame them, hang them up, give them away to people, write notes on the back of them. These kind of things are the most special things in life. And as I was going through all this, it reminded me of something that I read once. I don't know how you say the guy's name correctly. I've always said Friedrich Nietzsche. But many years ago, I was in a jail cell, and I had plenty of time to read books, and I read about 5,000 books. I was reading a book about every 36 hours. And one of the many books that I read was this book. I forget the title of it, but one of the passages, one of the parts in it was called Flies in the Marketplace, I believe. And it's funny how I was thinking about this whole thing today, about art and the millions of artists who aren't recognized and how they sometimes are discovered later. But if they had never made the art, they would never be discovered. This thing that I read 21 years ago popped into my mind, and it's perfect. It's one of my favorite things I've ever read, and I have it pulled up on my phone. And I'm going to read it to you. Take a minute, but it's worth it. So get ready. It's called Flies in the Marketplace. And this was written a long time ago, and translated from all kinds of different languages. So the words are a little strange, but you'll get the meaning. And here it goes. It says, "Do not be jealous of those unyielding and impatient men, you lover of truth. Never yet did truth cling to the arm of the unyielding. On account of those abrupt ones, return into your security. Only in the marketplace is one assailed by yes or no. Slow is the experience of all deep fountains. Long have they to wait until they know what has fallen into their depths. Far away from the marketplace and from fame happens all that is great. Far away from the marketplace and from fame have always dwelt the creator of new values. Flee, my friend, into your solitude. I see you stung all over by poisonous flies. Flee to where a rough, strong breeze blows. Flee into your solitude. You have lived too closely to the small and the pitiful. Flee from their invisible vengeance. For you they have nothing but vengeance. No longer raise your arm against them. They are innumerable, and it is not your job to be a fly swatter. Innumerable are the small and pitiful ones, and raindrops and weeds have been the ruin of many a proud structure. You are not a stone, but already you have become hollow from many drops. You will yet break and burst from the many drops. I see you exhausted by poisonous flies. I see you bleeding and torn at 100 spots, and your pride refuses even to be angry. They would have blood from you in all innocence. Blood is what bloodless souls crave, and therefore they sting in all innocence. But you, profound one, you suffer too profoundly even from small wounds, and before you have healed, the same poison worm crawls over your hand. You are too proud to kill these gluttons. But take care lest it be your fate to suffer all their poisonous injustice. They buzz around you also with their praise. Obtrusiveness is their praise. They want to be close to your skin and your blood. They flatter you as one flatters a god or a devil. They whimper before you as before a god or a devil. What does it come to? They are flatterers and whimperers and nothing more. Often also do they show themselves to you as friendly ones. But that has always been the prudence of cowards. Yes, cowards are wise. They think much about you with their petty souls. You are always suspect to them. Whatever is much thought about is at last thought suspicious. They punish you for all your virtues. They pardon you entirely for your errors. Because you are gentle and of honest character, you say, guiltless are they for their small existence. But their petty souls think, guilty is every existence. Even when you are gentle towards them, they still feel themselves despised by you, and they repay your beneficence, I don't know what that word is, with secret malfeasance. Your silent pride is always counter to their taste. They rejoice if you are humble enough to be vain. What we recognize in a man, we also irritate in him. Therefore, be on your guard against the small ones. In your presence, they feel themselves small, and their baseless gleams and glows against you an invisible vengeance. You did not see how often they became silent when you approached them, and how their energy left them like the smoke of a waning fire. Yes, my friend, you are the bad conscience of your neighbors, for they are unworthy of you. Therefore they hate you and would rather suck your blood. Your neighbors will always be poisonous flies. What is great in you, that itself must make them more poisonous and always more fly-like. Flee, my friend. into your solitude. And there, where a rough, strong breeze blows, it is not your job to be a fly swatter. Thus spoke Zarathustra. That, when I read that for the first time, I almost lost my mind. I had never really felt that big of a connection with someone else's words. It made me feel like this guy was me and I was this guy. It's a long passage, but I love the whole thing. The part that pertains the most to what we're talking about today, what I'm talking about today, it says, far away from the marketplace and from fame happens all that is great. When I read that for the first time, my head exploded. Far away from the marketplace and from fame happens all that is great. Far away from the marketplace and from fame have always dwelt the creators of new values. It's very true. So think about it. Your art, whatever you do, it might not make it. Might not get a lot of attention or make you a lot of money or be accepted by people at all. But what you do might be the genesis that influences the next layer of art and the person who actually does go on to do something huge. You never really know. The point is, make your art. Don't worry about the consequences or the results or the effect that it has on your bank account. Make your art. If you have it in you and it kind of knocks on your door, hello, what are you doing? I understand you have a family and you have a job and you have things to do, but hello, paint a picture. Here's that. You get those ideas all the time. Write it down, paint it, share it somehow. If you're an artist, a musician, you can put your music out really easy for free online. If you paint pictures, you can try to sell your paintings if you want. If not, paint as many paintings as you can and give as many away as you can. If you're a writer, write the book. Just write it. You've been thinking about it forever. Just start. Even if it ends and you're not happy with it, it's done. One cool thing that my grandfather did, my mom's dad did before he died, was not only did he paint literally thousands of paintings, but he wrote a short book about his life. It wasn't a piece of artwork. It was just the details, just the information, just the facts. And it's brilliant because I was able to read it after he had passed away. And I learned more about him in that book than I ever was able to in my real life at all. So even if your book isn't a New York Times bestseller and you don't get the big book deal in the advance, your grandson or your granddaughter or your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter might be able to pick that thing up and go, I want to learn about my great-great-great-great-grandmother. Oh, she made quilts too. Oh, she liked to drink coffee. Oh, wow. You never know how you might blow someone's mind. And it could be a small blow. It could be a small explosion. Your family just passed it around. Or it could be that your great-great-great-granddaughter owns a publishing house and goes, you know what, we're going to put this out. And another member of the family has a television show or a spaceship show or whatever they have in the future, and they put it out. And billions of people end up reading this thing, and it transforms society. You never know how art's going to affect the next art that's going to affect the next art, and so on. And look, the world is today is April 1st in the year 2020, April Fool's Day. But this is not a joke. The world is on a global shutdown, lockdown. People are locked in their homes, hiding from an unseen virus that's traversing the globe. What better time to start than now? What is your excuse now? You don't have to go to work. If you do have to go to work, go to work if you can. Most people right now that I know can't go to work. They're eating pizza, watching TV, burning days, just trying to get through this. Why not put pencil to paper? Sketch that idea, start writing the book, write the music, record yourself, put it out, record yourself with an iPhone, put it out on Spotify. Start painting pictures. Do whatever you do, whatever you've been thinking about doing. And do it regardless of consequence, regardless of the result, with no expectation for anything. And you may die and never realize any result from it. But 100 years from now, 50 years from now, Nick Drake died in I think he died in 1974. I think. Don't quote me on that. And I discovered his music in about 2016. How many years is that? 26, 30, 42 years? Somebody get a calculator and check my math. 30, 40, 50 years later, you might be appreciated, even if today you're not. So that's it. Thanks for tuning in. LaCroix cheers on the way out. All my coronavirus friends, I hope you're doing well. People have been asking for a long video, and now you've got one. If you're falling asleep to this, good night. A lot of people said they put these, I do the same thing with Rogan and Joey Diaz. Put on a podcast and go to sleep. And this one at 30 minutes is podcast level, length almost. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you're safe. I hope you're healthy. And I hope you're ready to let those creative juices start flowing. Myself, I have songs to write, so I got to go. Everybody have a great day, and as always, I will see you in the future.